Hi and welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Jill McSheehy with The Beginner's Garden, and today I'm going to be talking to you about some basic tried and true varieties that you can grow in your summer garden. Beginners often ask me, what are some basic varieties that I could start out with? Maybe they don't want to get lost in all the options of the seed catalogs that are available or what they find in the garden center, and they just want a basic tomato or a basic pepper or a basic bean, one that they know will work in their gardens. Today I'm going to share with you my top picks. Honestly, I have always wanted to compile a list like this, especially for beginners. So when True Leaf Market, a seed company I've been using for several years, approached me and talked to me about doing a beginner's garden seed packet with a variety of assortment of different seeds, I jumped at the chance. So what I'm going to be sharing with you here are my favorite vegetable, herb, and flower seeds for the summer garden, and they can all be found here in this beginner's garden seed assortment here at True Leaf Market. You get 12 packets of seeds for an incredible price, and let's just go over what's in this package. So first, let's talk about the tomato, because tomatoes are what everybody wants to grow, and my top pick would be the Roma Tomato. This is a basic workhorse tomato. I grow it every year in my garden. It is the optimum canning tomato if you're wanting to do any kind of tomato sauce or paste or salsa or anything like this. Roma is a great option. It's also a determinate tomato, which means it'll grow to a certain size, so you don't have to worry too much about a whole lot of trellising. It does need a little bit of support, but not like some of the other tomatoes. And then it'll fruit mostly all at once, and then you can take it out and put something else in afterwards if you want to. But even if you don't do any kind of canning, this is great for fresh salsas or bruschettas or other options like that. I would say a Roma tomato is a pretty good choice, especially for a beginner to start out growing tomatoes. Next, we have the Jubilee tomato. This became a quick favorite of mine a few years ago. It's a globe-shaped tomato that looks like the bright summer sun. It is gorgeous, but not only that, it is easy to grow, especially in a hot climate. The Golden Jubilee will grow all summer long for me, and even in grow bags, it does fantastic. And yeah, you can can it if you want to, but I think it really shines when you use it fresh in salsas or any kind of fresh eating. It's a little bit small to go on your big sandwich, but you can still do it on sandwiches as well. And the flavor is very nice and mild and a little bit sweet, which I think works really well for any kind of fresh use. The Golden Jubilee tomato. Next, we have a very popular slicing tomato called Black Krim. This is one I've grown for many years, and it's a really good option, especially if you want the heirloom flavor of a slicing tomato. This is one that it may not bear as many tomato fruits on the plant as your Golden Jubilee and your Roma, but the few that you do get, they are going to be fantastic in flavor, especially if flavor is what you're going for in a tomato. All right, let's go to peppers. This has been my favorite bell pepper to grow. I've had a hard time sourcing seeds the last few years, so I'm really excited to actually be able to grow it again this year. It's called the Emerald Giant Pepper. The Emerald Giant Pepper just seemed to produce really well in my garden, so this is one that I wanted to choose. You can have all sorts of options in bell peppers, but this would be my top pick. Most home gardens are not without jalapeno peppers. Jalapenos are some of the easiest ones to grow, so I definitely included it in this mix. Jalapenos are great to grow in your garden, your raised bed, but they're also fantastic in containers, and they even grow well. I usually grow them in my green stalk planter. Next, we have a bush bean. This is my all-time favorite bush bean. It's called Jade. I've grown it in my garden, in my raised beds, in my green stalk planters, and I just love how prolific it is and how quick to harvest it is. Delicious would probably be the biggest word to describe this. I've grown lots of different types of beans in the past for green beans over the past decade or so, but it wasn't until I started growing the Jade bush beans when my kids tasted it on the table and they were shocked at how much they enjoyed the flavor of this bean. It's a very tender bean and it holds well in canning, which is how we eat green beans. They're not tough or stringy, which is the biggest benefit to this, because sometimes it's easy to get stringy beans and you definitely don't like to eat that. I highly recommend the Jade bush bean for both its ease of growth and its incredible flavor. And next we have cucumbers. You can buy lots of different cucumbers, but I chose the bush pickling cucumber because it was a little bit more able to be maintained. I grew it in a grow bag and it grew really well. You could grow it in any kind of container or raised bed or your ground bed. It doesn't have to be in a grow bag, but if you're limited for space, this bush pickling is an option. Now, the pickling cucumbers are going to be a little bit different on their skin, so if you want to eat them fresh, you might want to peel them, but for me, this would be a good all-purpose cucumber for both slicing and pickling. You'd have both of these options in one. So those are my top picks for my vegetables, and that's mainly what I grow in my garden is vegetables, but we always want a couple of herbs, and for the herb choices, I chose your basic Genovese Basil. This is one that I'm always planting beside my tomatoes. I usually make basil pesto, freeze it to last the entire year, and only a couple of plants will do me because these can grow really large, and having fresh basil, of course you want that in your garden, right? And next we have dill. This is a Mammoth Dill. Dill is also one that grows in the summer, although I usually plant it a little bit earlier than basil just because it's a little bit more of a preference for the cooler part of the summer, whereas the basil will thrive in the heat. But basil and dill are the two herbs that I'm always going to be having in my summer garden. And then finally I have a few options for flowers. Now, I like flowers, but my purpose in my garden is definitely the food. So when I'm choosing which flowers are gonna go in my garden, they're not just for their beauty, although they're beautiful, but they also serve several purposes. First, we have calendula. Calendula is a must-have in my garden for many reasons. Again, it's beautiful. Another thing is it is an amazing attractor of beneficial insects like syrphid flies and other beneficial insects. And I also will pick calendula. I will dry the flowers, use it for salves and balms and things like that. Moisturizing oils all year round. Calendula is fantastic for the skin. So for me, calendula is in my garden because it's got the trifecta of beauty, great for pollinators, and I can use it in my home. Next, I have Alyssum. Alyssum is another favorite of mine, and the reason I grow Alyssum is because it is an attractant to amazing pollinators and beneficial insects, specifically the syrphid fly, also known as the hoverfly. These are some of my favorite beneficial insects in my garden. I know the ladybug gets all the glory, but the syrphid flies are the ones that I can actively see laying their eggs right around any kind of aphid infestation, and the syrphid flies get to work. So wherever I can put Alyssum in my garden to attract these amazing beneficial insects, I'm gonna do it. Not to mention the delicate flowers just add such a beauty to the garden itself. And then finally, I have Nasturtium. Nasturtium for me is probably more about the beauty than it is anything else. Yes, you can pick the flowers and you can eat the flowers, you can put them on a salad, and it just brings a nice spring life to your garden salads. But I like Nasturtium because it also is just beautiful in the garden, and it does attract great pollinators like bees and some of the bigger pollinators to your garden as well. For me, Nasturtium is definitely one of those that I'm going to always be putting in my garden to add a little bit of a pop to all the edible varieties that I have in my garden. Of course, these are ones that have worked well in my garden, that I grow in my garden, but I've also heard from other people that they work well in lots of other places as well. Obviously, it's a good idea to get recommendations from people who are local to you, but if you're wanting a great place to start and you're wanting some seeds to get started on your summer garden at a really good price, I highly recommend checking out this assortment here from True Leaf Market. What about you? Have you grown any of these? If so, I would love to hear your experience in the comments. And are there any tried and true varieties that you grow each year that you would recommend for beginners? Put that down in the comments. We can all learn from each other. There are lots of different options out there, but it's always fun to be able to know that what you're growing is a variety that many gardeners have found success with. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more, especially as we are going into the planting and growing season. And to get your packet of these seeds, we'll have a link in the description. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.